The weather is warm, the air may be a little sticky, summer is almost here, and I feel like it is the perfect time to do a summer book tag. Hi everyone, it's Rhonda and welcome to a new video. I got some new lighting. My lighting in my videos is always so bad, and I was using a ring light and ring lights don't work that well, so I got some little box lights, and let me know if the lighting is a little bit better. I noticed when I was editing videos, the light was going in and out and changing, but hopefully this fixes it. Let me know in the comments if it's better. I don't know anything about photography or technology. I don't know what I'm doing, so help me out. But as I mentioned in my intro, we're doing a summer book tag. I personally love watching any type of book tag videos, whether they're newbie book tags or seasonal book tags. I don't care. I think they're a fun way to not only get to know the content creator, but a fun way and a unique way to learn about new books and a kind of a cool way to recommend books. So let's go ahead and get going. I have about 10 summary themed book tag prompts, and I actually got them from ChatGPT, of course. I went on there and I was like, hey, I'm doing a YouTube video on a summer book tag. Can you help me come up with 10 summer book tag prompts? And it was like, yeah, that's a great idea. And it gave me these 10 prompts, and I think they're perfect. So let's go ahead and start with prompt number 1. I have my phone with my notes. It says, Sunshine and Smiles, a book that made you genuinely happy or left you smiling. So when I think of Sunshine and Smiles or any type of summary book, I think of just a light, fun romance that I can just binge read, that's not too deep, that's just going to be a light and fun and easy, sweet read that's going to have me giggling and kicking my feet. I feel like the perfect book for this prompt is Beg, Borrow, or Steal by Sarah Adams, and this is the 3rd book in the Rome, Kentucky series, and I would actually recommend all 3 of these books for the summertime, or actually any Sarah Adams books. I've read her entire backlist of just closed-door romances, and they are all perfect for the summertime. But this one in particular, I am recommending just because I had a great time reading it. This is about Emily and Jack, and they are both teachers at the same school. I don't know what grade they teach, and they are out for the summer. And Jack has actually just come back in town. He was supposed to get married, and that didn't happen. So he moves in next door to Emily. And the thing is, Emily and Jack don't get along. They kind of butt heads. It's a little bit of a workplace rivals, two-lover situation. And they both are writers. Emily is trying to write her first novel over the summertime. And then Jack is actually a very successful writer that no one knows who he is. He has a pen name. No one knows that he's a successful writer. Anyway, Emily inadvertently does something that could jeopardize her job, and she needs Jack's help to handle that problem, if you will. I'm trying not to give anything away. And so they are having to work together to fix whatever it is that Emily did. So that's what this is about. It is so fun. These little moments that they find themselves in are funny and sweet. Jack is incredibly swoony. And also too, Jack is not the perfect guy. He is flawed like most people are. And I just loved him for that. And I thought they were so sweet together and funny. And also there is a little bit of depth to this because Emily is actually the oldest sister of this family that's featured in the Rome, Kentucky series. I don't know if she's the oldest in the group of siblings or if she's just the oldest sister. Doesn't matter, but she is kind of like the person that kind of takes care of everyone. But the problem is her brothers and sisters are older, some are getting married, and they don't need her, and so she's having a hard time with that. So it's kind of interesting to see her whole character arc and how she handled that situation. But this was just so sweet and fun. Sarah Adams does usually write closed-door romances. However, with her last few books, she has kind of been dabbling into not having her books closed door. So this one is not. There are a couple of scenes, but in the beginning of the book, the author does tell you which chapters those scenes are in case you want to skip it. But I love this book. I gave it 4 stars, and I think it is the perfect book to take with you when you go to the pool or the beach. The next prompt is Beach Read Bliss. A perfect light or escapist read you take to the beach. And the first author that popped in my head was Annabelle Monaghan. I love her books. She is another romance author who writes contemporary romances where it is a closed door. There's not a lot of spice. It's really more of like a women's fiction with I don't want to say a subplot of a romance because there is a heavy emphasis on a romance, but there's usually more depth to her stories. And also too, the pacing of her books are so good. I'm never bored, or there's no lulls in her stories. I just kind of plow through them pretty quickly. But the book I want to recommend is It's a Love Story. This is her newest release. I don't have a physical copy of this book just yet because at the time of filming this video, it has not been released yet. I actually got a digital ARC copy through NetGalley, and I was able to read it that way. But let's talk about this book. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars, and this one is about Jane. What's her last name? Her name's Jane, and she was once a child actress, and she was in the show where she was kind of like the sidekick. She was the kid that had egg on her face a lot, or she would just cause mishaps where they were always like, oh, Janie, you know, that type of actress. And she's now grown up. She's actually an executive for a production company, and she's trying to produce a movie that she really believes in. However, her boss is not wanting to greenlight that movie. So in order to get this film greenlit, she lies to her boss and tells him that this rising pop star named Jack is someone that she used to know when she was 16 while working on this show, which is true, and he has agreed to meet with her to talk about doing the soundtrack to this movie. Now, Jack is he is very famous, and so this would be a big deal. And so her boss is like, yeah, if you can meet with him and get him to say yes on doing the music for this movie, then I will greenlight that movie. And then also too, there is a man by the name of Dan who is a cinematographer who Jane does not get along with. He kind of sabotaged some of her work, and they butt heads. Well, anyway, Dan is from this little small town. It's kind of like a beachy town, and they have this music festival every year, and Jack is supposed to be playing at this festival. So Dan tells Jane, hey, Jack's gonna be at this festival. My brother or brother-in-law is going to be working the festival, so he can get you backstage to meet with him to talk about doing the music on this movie. And so she's like, great. So she ends up going home with Dan, and they are strictly platonic. They tell the family, hey, we are not together. However, the family is obviously trying to play matchmaker, and they are trying to get Jane and Dan together. This is a book about forced proximity. It's workplace rivals to lovers, and it was just, it was so sweet. The writing in this book, as with all Annabelle Monaghan books, is incredibly vivid. I can picture everything in my mind. I could smell the sea air. I can feel the sand in my toes. Overall, this was just a sweet, fun, summery read. It had a slow burn romance that I loved. And so if you're looking for a good beachy book that you want to take with you on vacation, I would absolutely recommend It's a Love Story, as well as any Annabelle Monaghan book. Okay, the third prompt is Scorching Hot Romance, a swoony romance that sizzled with chemistry. And I'm not sure if I told you this, but when I was coming up with the books to pick for these prompts, I was trying to pick books that I read in the last 12 months. I didn't want to pick really old books. But the book that came to mind that I read recently is Emma of 83rd Street. I think this book is perfect for the springtime or the summertime, but the romance in here was so good. This one is a modern retelling of Jane Austen's Emma. I went over it, I think, in last month's wrap up. So this book is about Emma, and she is a rich woman living in the Upper East Side with her dad. And she played matchmaker to her sister and one of the brothers of some family friends, and it was successful. They got married, and so she needs a new project. And so through this whole book, she is actually trying to matchmake a friend of hers to various men unsuccessfully, and it's hilarious. I love the friendship in this book. It was so sweet. And then also too, there is a romance in this book between Emma and George Knightley, and this is definitely a friends to lovers trope because they've known each other since they were kids. They are childhood friends, and George Knightley is just always at the house. He's always there, and so she's always seen him as a friend. So this book is the slowest of slowest burns I have read in a while, but it was done so well. Nothing happens until, I'm not joking, like these last little few pages, which I love that. It was so sweet. The pining and the yearning was amazing. And I do need to say that during this last little bit, when things happen. It got too spicy for me. I did not think this book needed the level of spice that this turned to, but outside of that, I really enjoyed the romance of this book. It was definitely swoony. Again, the yearning and the pining that these two have for each other was written perfectly, and I do want to read more from these authors. I believe this is the first book of a series they're doing where they are doing modern retellings of various Jane Austen novels. So I want to read the next book, and this was so good. So I would say if you're looking for just a really swoony and light romance that is a slow burn, read this one. It was so good. Definitely recommend it. Prompt number 4 says Summer Storms, a book with emotional turbulence or unexpected twist. As soon as I read that, I immediately thought of this book because it is my favorite book of the year so far, and that is The Bright Years by Sarah DeMoff. This had me crying, like ugly crying. Throughout the entire book. In this book, you are following Lillian and Ryan, and the first third of the book, you are following the POV of Lillian, and here you're learning about her history. You're also learning how she meets Ryan and her initial thoughts of him, and how he proposed and how they got married and started a family. But you're also learning about some secrets that they keep from each other that are forming cracks in their relationship. The two secrets are, number 1, and I'm not giving anything away because it's in the flap of the book. The secret that Lillian is keeping from Ryan is she had a baby and she gave it up for adoption before she met Ryan. And then Ryan is also keeping a secret from Lillian. He is an alcoholic and he is keeping that from Lillian. He's hiding it. And those two things are forming cracks in their marriage. And this is what that's about. And then in the middle part of the story, you're following a different POV. You were following their daughter, which I thought was very interesting. And then the end, you're following a third POV. This book is short, number 1, but it packs a punch. It was so well written. So it was organized very well. The way it describes alcoholism and how it affects a marriage and a family and relationships was so well done, and I loved it. So again, this is a very short book. It's under 300 pages. But it is a punch in the face. It will get you. Make sure you have a box of tissues nearby because you will need it. Oh, also too, I forgot to mention there is kind of a plot twist in here that I did not see coming that, it killed me. It hurt so much. I was not expecting it, but this book is so good. Not a lot of people are reading it. Not a lot of people are talking about it. It just came out last month or the month before, so there's still time. But this one is so good. Read it, read it, read it. Prompt number 5 reads Slip and Slide Plot, a book with tons of twists and turns or chaotic fun. And when I saw this one, I immediately thought of a book I just finished not that long ago called The Retirement Plan. This is kind of a cozy mystery. I've really been getting into cozy mysteries this year, and I loved it. This book is about a group of 4 friends. They are in their 60s and they have been friends for years. Their husbands are best friends, they're best friends, their kids hung out together. So at this point in their lives, you would think that it's time for them to start retiring or thinking about it. However, they are very unhappy in their marriages because their husbands made an investment and lost all of their retirement money. So these 4 women are actually very upset with their husbands. Their marriages aren't what they used to be. Well, one day, one of the friends' husbands has passed away in what you assume is a freak accident. Apparently, he actually got a $1 million policy for himself, and she is now set. She doesn't have to work anymore. She's planning on moving to Florida and retiring there, and she's the happiest they have ever seen her. Well, the remaining 3 friends are like, well, we want that. We want the $1 million policy. We want to retire and not have to think about work or being in these marriages where we are so unhappy. So they come up with this idea to hire a hitman to kill their husbands for the insurance policies. However, their husbands actually have something up their sleeves too. So this entire book was incredibly chaotic. It was so funny. I laughed throughout the whole book. Their bumbling antics just had me cracking up. But this book as a whole just had a lot of twists and turns. It was chaotic and ridiculous, but it was so funny. And I would definitely recommend this book if you're looking for just a fun, cozy mystery to break up all of the summer romance. Prompt number 6 reads, Road Trip Ready, a book featuring travel, adventure, or a literal road trip. I had a lot of books that would work for this, but I think the one that I haven't heard a ton of people talking about is P.S. I Love You by Lauren Donnelly. This has traveling all throughout it. This is a contemporary romance. It's probably more like a, I don't know, I would probably consider it more like a women's fiction with a pretty heavy subplot of a romance, because here you're following Maddie, and her brother has unfortunately just passed away of leukemia. So Josh has actually been cremated, and in his will he has requested that Maddie and Josh take his ashes and split it up over these different places and spread those ashes. So there's multiple places that these two need to go to spread her brother's ashes. And Maddie and Dom actually have a history. I believe they used to date. So this book, even though it is absolutely emotional, anytime they went to a new location to spread Josh's ashes and they read this letter, I was bawling my eyes out. I was crying. It was, it was so sad. This is also hilarious. Even though there's all that grief in here, this book is a comedy. It is very funny. Well, what I loved most about this book was Maddie's sarcastic sense of humor. One of my best friends is very sarcastic, and I think she is the funniest person around. So I really loved that about the book, because I feel like the humor that is brought into the story really breaks up some of the grief and the emotional depth that had me crying. And I felt like it definitely needed that comedic element to the story. And it was so well written and so well done. This one was a solid 4-star read. I really enjoyed it. If you're looking for a book that features traveling, this is the one you need to pick up. There's humor, there's grief, and some depth, and I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars, and I would recommend it for the summer. Prompt number 7 is Campfire Tales, a book with spooky, mysterious, or eerie vibes. And this year I haven't read too many spooky or eerie books, but I did read one that I really enjoyed, and it is a Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. This is perfect for the summer because it is set in Charleston, South Carolina. I'm actually going there this summer with my friends from college, some of my girlfriends, and I cannot wait. But this one is about a group of women who live in the suburbs. This book is set in the mid to late 80s, and then it spans several years. But these women form this book club, and they're reading these true crime books. And one day, one of the older ladies who lives on the block passes away, and her nephew comes to town to kind of take care of her property and tie up loose ends. And something's weird about him. He only comes out at night. Something is just kind of fishy with him. And so they immediately believe he's a vampire. And so that's what this book is about. This one is by Grady Hendrix. I think this is only my second book that I have, and I have 2 others by him on my TBR to read. But I read How to Sell a Haunted House, and I really love that. He writes incredible dark humor. If you like dark comedy, pick up a Grady Hendrix book. This, I think, is my favorite out of the 2 so far, just because it was so ridiculous, but it was also creepy and it was gory. There are things that are happening in this book where I was like, oh my God, that's insane. And then also too, this is a 400-page book, so it's kind of beefy, but I read this so fast. I think I read this within a day. It was just very well paced, and I was just wanting to constantly turn those pages. So I think if you like just a little bit of goriness, a little bit of creepiness, some dark comedy mixed in with a good Southern vampire story, then I would say definitely pick this one up. I personally loved it. I thought it was great, and I would recommend it for the summertime. Prompt number 8 reads Sand Between the Pages, a book with a coastal or island setting. As soon as I read this, I immediately thought of a book I just read last month or the month before called The Love Haters by Catherine Center. This is her newest book, and the setting of this book is Key West. And I think if you're looking for a good summer book set in a beachy town, pick this one up. I loved it. I gave it 4 stars. Here we're following Katie Vaughn, and she works for a production company where she does promo videos. And she is thinking that she's about to get laid off, and one of her co-workers says, hey, I have a project for you that may save your job. You have to go to Key West and do a promo video for the Coast Guard. And she's like, great, I can do that. And he asked her, you know how to swim? She's like, absolutely. She doesn't know how to swim at all. So she goes to Key West to film this promo video, and she has to learn how to swim. Well, the person who ends up teaching her how to swim is Hutch, and he is actually part of the Coast Guard that she is doing a promo video for. So this is about their little blossoming romance, but that is kind of like a side plot. This is definitely more of a women's fiction. There is another romance in this book, and that is a romance with herself. She is dealing with body image issues, and this has stemmed from her childhood. She is also getting out of a relationship with a man who has become a famous singer, and the paparazzi has been saying really nasty things about her online, and so she has all these things coming at her, and she's just trying to deal, you know. And so really this is a love letter to herself, and really it's just learning to love herself and be comfortable in her skin, and I love that message. And also too, in typical Catherine Center fashion, our female main character Katie is incredibly quirky. Her inner dialogue is so funny, and the little romance between Katie and Hutch was very, very sweet. So I love this one, and I think it's perfect if you're looking for a book that's set in like a beachy town like Key West. Prompt number 9 reads, Sunburn Alert, a book that left you feeling burned. Either it's overhyped, disappointing, or frustrating. Well, I have the perfect book because it was disappointing and frustrating, and that is Emily Henry's newest book called Great Big Beautiful Life. This was so bad. Okay, so here we are following 2 writers. One is named Alice. She works for an online gossip magazine. And then we're also following Hayden, who is a Pulitzer Prize winning biographer. Well, they're both competing to write the biography or the memoir of Margaret Ives, who is a very well-known heiress, socialite who went in hiding like 20 years ago, and no one's really heard from her since. Well, she has enlisted these 2 to interview her for a month and then write what they can, and then she'll read it and pick one of them to write her story. So that's what this is about. Before I read it, I had heard that this is very different than what she usually writes, that it's more Evelyn Hugo-esque. And so I went in that expecting more of a historical fiction or a general fiction, kind of like Taylor Jenkins Reid, with very little romance. However, this still disappointed me. It was so bad. The romance in here went from hate to love to hot and heavy like that. I did not like the romance at all. It was just, I didn't see it. I didn't see the evolution of them not getting along and starting to, I didn't see how they could be together. I really couldn't. And then the story of Margaret Ives was boring. I did not care. With Evelyn Hugo, as we're learning about her life, I was invested in her story. I was very interested in the men that she married and why she married them and why she divorced them. And it was just well written. It was good, and it just did not work in here. It was so disappointing. I'm going to say this is probably my most disappointing book of the year, and it's probably going to stay that way. But it didn't work for me. I didn't love it, and so I would say this one is definitely a sunburn. Okay, we've made it to the end of the book tag. The last prompt reads, Endless Summer. A book you wished never ended. And I had a couple of ideas. I almost went with The Favorites. I really enjoyed that book, and I could have read even more. And I ultimately settled on Sunday Morning by Jewel E. Ann. And I'm going to right off the bat say that this really towed the line on what I'm comfortable with when it comes to a spicy story. This was incredibly spicy, but I was able to read it. It was good. This is about Sarah, who is the oldest daughter of 3. She is the daughter of a preacher, and she lives in a small town, and she's dating this guy who her family expects her to marry. However, they get along, but there's nothing there for both of them. There's no emotional connection. They're just with each other because their families expect it. Well, anyway, her boyfriend's older brother gets out of the army, and he's moved back home and helping with the farm. His name is Isaac, and Sarah starts falling for him. So this is a boyfriend's older brother trope. And I didn't think I was going to enjoy this one, but it was so good. I gave this 5 stars. Something else that's going on in this book is Sarah does not want to stay in the small town. She has bigger plans in her life, bigger goals. She wants to be a musician. She wants to be a songwriter. And so she wants to learn how to play guitar, and she wants to learn how to write songs. That's her passion. And so throughout this book, Isaac is helping her with her ambitions. So this is definitely a little bit, Yeah, it's definitely a romance, but it also was giving me A Star is Born vibes, and I loved it. I think this is probably the most surprising book of the year that I ended up loving. The reason why I picked this one for a book I didn't want to end was because, you know, this book ends and then there is an epilogue, and the epilogue jumps, I think, 10 years in the future, and I really wanted another book that tells us how she got to the point she was in the epilogue. I wanted to know what happened during that 10 years to get to where she is now. So this is a book I didn't want to end. I definitely could have read 2 books about Sarah and Isaac. Their romance was amazing. Yes, it is so spicy, a little bit taboo, but the way it's written, I could absolutely read it. It was so well done, so tasteful, and I loved it. All right, my friends, I hope you enjoyed this summer book tag for the beginning of summer. I am listing all of these prompts in the description. So if you want, you are welcome to take these prompts, copy, paste them in the comments, and let me know what book you would choose for each of the prompts for yourself. Anyway, that's all I have for you. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and also subscribe if you haven't already. Because we are into summer, I have a ton of summery themed content coming out. I'm going to do some summer recommendations, not only for romance and general fiction, but also thrillers. I'm also going to do kind of like a mid-year wrap-up where I go over all of the 5-star books I've read so far, or maybe do a mid-year book tag as well. I have a lot coming out, and I don't want you to miss any of that, so definitely subscribe if you haven't already. But thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.